So alrighty then.
Yes, sir.
We're making this stupid video because I had the bright idea of coming out here to build a cabin in the middle of nowhere. And I'll throw in some footage on the cabin so they can see what we did to get into it. But in the meantime, we had some interesting affairs, to say the least. We came up here one day, and it was last year around about this time. We came walking out here, and it was my wife and her mom, and we walked past these great big tracks, and we'll include those. And it was a perfect pathway walking around the shed we have here to the elk that we had hanging in a tree from the elk hunt from the prior year. And so it just was way out of place. And so we took a picture of it, a couple of pictures. Probably didn't document it as well as we should have, but nonetheless we have it. So that's what kind of started us out here. For me, I was not much of a Bigfoot guy or belief in Bigfoot. I didn't disbelieve it. I just didn't think it existed anywhere but in the Northwest and Canada. But now
The thing that needs to be said is there's going to be people giving us crap about, well, how do you know their footprints? And this was right after the snow thaw. Nobody had been in here. Nobody could get in here yet. It was a bad snow year. And there's a big gate across, so nobody would, the property is fenced. It's 10 acres, it's fenced. Nobody had been in here. There was no tire tracks. There was no human tracks. But once they drove in the driveway, there were some patches of snow. Most of it still had snow. And those footprints go in just a perfect circle around that shop and make a circle around that tree where the elk torso was hanging. There's no other explanation for it.
the fence is the property is fenced all the way around the 10 acres, and
It's a 6-foot fence.
yeah.
And we went around the property to just observe and see if there were any places where we could see that something had been. And there are 2 places where the fence is completely bent down to about the 3 or 4 foot mark, just smashed down from the top, like something just came along and pushed it down. And that kind of got our eyebrows up a little bit.
It's just been one thing after another, and then we started doing some research. And a lot of people will say, Sasquatch stuff online's a hoax and all that, but there's certain things that aren't hoaxes, and there's certain things that you see that that can't be disproven. Some of the things we saw today that you'll see are I've never seen, and we've both been out in the woods most of our lives.
We're both avid hunters. We've been out in the woods, and what we've been seeing lately, because we kind of know what to look for now, it's unexplainable, other than we know what it is.
Yeah, there's only one thing that could do what's been done, and in the past, those were overlooked just because we didn't know what we just didn't want to see, I guess, more than anything. There's a big elk population up here. There's horses even, and deer, and the elk or the Sasquatch, they're following that herd. They know right where they go. They know the watering holes. They know it all. There's been sightings up here. It's kind of overwhelming for both of us, and even deciding on whether to put it out there was gut-wrenching, to say the least. But I think it's good so people can see that, hey, this is out there, and we're not crazy. Part of the problem is we don't tell anybody because We don't want to be stigmatized as the nuts of the neighborhood, you know. Last time we went up, for example, we went up a week ago. We'll put that on there as well. But we went up this canyon, and last year during the elk hunt, we went up through there. Well, actually, we were hunting horns up through there, and we came across this site where we weren't sure whether it was a cow or whether it was an elk
or a horse.
or
I
a
think it had to be a cow or an elk.
Yeah, something big. Anyway, the femur bones have been broke. They've been splintered, like somebody had splintered them with their hands. No other way that it could be done. There was no gnawing. There was no impact to the bone. There was nothing except for sheer
And there was a pile of them. I think there were 4 or 6 of them that had all been snapped, and they were just in a little pile, way back in this little draw that it's really a kind of a dark, way back in the middle of nowhere.
It's kind of a creepy.
But the bones, the thing is you start thinking really about what would do that and how something could do that, to snap a bone to where it's splintered, and the force that it would take to do an elk or a cow femur bone.
Well, I looked up online what the pounds per square inch would be on a human femur bone, and it's 1,700 pounds of pressure per square inch. And you could probably triple that for a cow or a horse. So you can only imagine the strength it would take. And there were no markings of rock. There was no markings of anything other than it being snapped by just sheer force, strength, and the marrow being sucked out of it. That's the only conclusion we can come up with. If you guys have a better conclusion and something that we haven't thought about, we're all ears.
You could put it in the comments. I'd be interested to hear theories, but I know that it's consistent with M.K. Davis is what he found in Oregon, or no, where was that?
Yeah, it was in
where they were.
It was in Washington, wasn't it?
Washington, but when they went up and they found deer bones, the same thing had been snapped.
Or was that in Bluff Creek?
Yeah, that was Bluff Creek.
You know, we're new to this whole thing and doing this. If we had fake masks, we'd put them on right now. Just because we don't know what to think about this whole thing. Anyway, from what we've seen and the things that we've seen, and every time we come out here and we go to a different spot, there's another carcass. Last time we came out, there was a horse carcass in the middle of nowhere. We find those bones. We find and there's a few elk that I'm sure are from hunters and that kind of thing. But a lot of what we find is, like today, the pine nuts.
Oh, that was really weird.
I mean, there was a pile of pine nuts just sitting in a pile where nobody's been, especially not this year. And
we were the first ones up there. These are fresh pine nuts. They hadn't been out, they were right out in the middle. Look, there was a big long branch that had been drug out, and the pine nuts were sitting right next to it, like something was in the middle of moving this branch, and it had a handful of pine nuts and heard us coming and just stopped and dropped them and went off. But and then all around that area there are cedar trees and pine trees where the branches had been just completely pulled down and torn off from 10 or 12 foot up all the way down to 5-6 foot, where there's nothing to explain that. The snowfall isn't that heavy around here that would cause that, and it's just right up this one ridge.
yeah,
That we went in a straight line up the ridge, and everywhere we went, every 50 feet or 100 feet, there was just branches that were torn off.
the closer to the
trees.
top you got, the worse it became. Like it was an area that they considered theirs. Well, I'm not sure how that works, but it was intense.
I've never seen anything like that before, especially the force it takes. I reached up and tried to pull one of those branches. I barely bent it. force that it takes to tear those branches, 4 to
Alive.
6 inch branches, 8-inch branches, some of them just torn completely out of the trunk of the tree, 8 or 10 feet up. Doesn't make any sense.
No. And, you know, as far as snow load goes, most of these trees, you know, they're not the kind, their root system's a lot bigger than like aspen. Aspen are so tall and skinny, lots of times snow load tips them over all the time. But that's the worst I've ever seen up there in any area.
There's pinyon pines, there's junipers, there's all kinds of stuff up there. Cedars that are just ripped to shreds.
Oh, I know, just ripped down, branches broken, upended, and there's even branches that have been pushed back up into trees butt first.
There are cedar trees that are 4 or 5 inches around that have been just twisted and bent over.
And in that same area, we were probably 10 miles, maybe not quite that far from where we found the broken bones. But when we were up in there hiking back, we just had this eerie feeling of, you know, just calm, too much calm.
It was really quiet. No animals. You
Just
couldn't hear anything.
Almost,
no insects.
yeah, just way surreal. And this rock comes in from behind me and hits the ground, and then bumps up into a bush that hit me. And I thought he did it. I'm already sprinting down the trail, freaking out. I look back, and he was wondering what I was doing. And
just when that happened, there was a tree in the middle of the trail, and the tree was between us, so I didn't hear or see it, but all I saw was him running. So I took off in a little bit like, what?
Oh, it was and the further we talked about it down the trail, the spookier it became.
The faster we walked.
Yeah, but this whole area, there's been sightings and you know, the food chain here with the elk, the horses, the deer, just all of it. They're here, and you know we're even bringing this up just, you know, just to show our perspective and the fact that we're not crazy.
I'd like somebody to help explain what, as you see in the video footage, try to explain what would make tracks that are 6 or 8 foot apart, where you can see toe impressions
In uniform.
In the snow, which had melted clear down into the dirt.
Yeah.
Uniform tracks that go out across there, and explain what would do that with these trees. Again, first ones up in there this year, a lot of them were fresh breaks. We were the first ones up there. The snow was just we barely got in there with 4-wheelers. We got stuck several times.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we had to stop and hike our way in from there. But it's thick, and there's a lot of activity of some kind. There's beds that looked like somebody had been laying down eating pine nuts. And the fact that this year's pine nut crop it's still,
I've never seen anything like it.
They're everywhere, and that's an awesome source of protein. The other thing too is we came back to the cabin last time we were here, and he noticed some prints on the window. I took a picture of it, but I can't. You just can't really get the gist of it with a photo.
About 10 or 12 foot up, there looks like a nose print or some hand print or something up on the glass. There's no way that I can jump that high.
No.
Or
stand on anything. It's the big windows on the side of the cabin that are up, you know,
maybe 10 or 12 foot.
But anyway, you guys have any ideas or, you know, suggestions on what we've seen or what we've found, and maybe some help on what else we should be doing, let us know. First one's in here. See, we wouldn't have got past this right here. Want to go up on that side? This might be what they're eating. Look at these great big old pine nut. That's what I'd be eating. Under every tree. These pines are thick. That's a big old tree, isn't it? Pine nuts everywhere. You know, that's a good staple. At least in the years they produce. You know? Just everywhere. I know. A lot of weird.
This is crazy because this is on that same ridge. We just got to the very top right here. That's where all the branches were broken straight up that line coming up here. We get up to the top and there's another one with just huge branches are broken off, snapped.
If I was a hominid and I needed a lot of calories per day, you could just lay down in one of those trees without you know. Another scratch.
One right there.
Look at that track. You tell me what else that would be. Went up through there. There's some deer tracks over this way. That could have easily been in the snow too. Looks like this has been smashed down over here. These pine nuts. We came across any tree structures. There's an elk. Or an elk's been shredding branches, but that's not normal. I know. What is that? That's just laying out here for someone to grab. I don't know where that came off of. Almost looks like something tore it out of this tree.
Yeah, they've come along. It's a giant branch.
Look at that. Look at that.
Sasquatch has torn that
Look at those butt prints.
completely down.
That's just flat. That's not a bed.
Well, then he sat down right there, and then he went over here and just ripped these branches off.
And that one over there. That's pretty fresh.
That one right there.
Yeah, looks like
Ripped
that's
off.
super fresh, that one down there. I'm not sure exactly
Right
which
here.
one that came off of, but
What would do that?
well, it sure in hell wouldn't be an elk or a deer. We might get into a structure. Another example. The guy was eating pine nuts. You just sat down and all the pine nuts are cleared out all the way around pretty much. Look at that. There's not any hardly. compared to everywhere else.
Something sat down right there and was eating pine nuts in this tree.
Almost like
Finding more broken branches in these trees, and they're just shredded down. It's not snow doing that.
I mean,
There's
so
not
many of
enough
these
snow
trees
here.
could be little structures or lines. They wouldn't even need anything else.
Just break it over to sit in there under the shade on a hot day. And look at all the, look at this, a pile of broken branches. It's just piled up there.
That was probably a bed at some point, braced up
I
somewhere
mean, and
else.
that hasn't been cut. That's been just
been thrown, and it's not been thrown from right here.
all of them are piled up in a row. Look at that. And we're out in the middle of nowhere.
There's been no
Nobody's
people
been
out
up
here chainsawing, looking for wood, none of that. Look, you can see where it's been ripped.
Yeah, every one of those have been ripped off.
Look at the size of those pine nuts. Man.
Some big old pine nuts.
See that? Look at that.
Crazy.
That's what I'd do. And the other thing about up here is there's not a huge snow load. So a lot of this, that tree's been pushed down. That one may have broke off from snow load, but just a lot of them right in this area.
There doesn't get more than a foot or two of snow on the ground.
And look at this. This is just a circle, and they're all ripped down.
This is this one path up this hill. Being pulled off, and there's a tree pushed over right there.
And look over here. Look at this. You tell me that's normal.
Been ripped down.
Look at this.
Both of these have been torn off of this tree. There's another one. See the way it's been torn off?
Look at these piles. These piles are just piled. They're not, it's not natural. That's just not natural.
It isn't natural, but look at this. As we go right on up here, there's more.
Oh,
And
man.
there's more right up straight up this line.
Just all these have been torn down.
We're out in the middle of nowhere. I guarantee you nobody's been hiking in here, and who would have the strength to do this?
Well, and in one specific spot, it's not like all the trees.
In a straight line up this ridge. Oh my gosh, come look at that. Clear up there, they're broken off.
Oh my gosh.
Clear up there.
Look at that.
That's
You tell
12
me.
foot up there.
You tell me that's snow load.
That's not snow loader.
It's not snow
And
load.
it's only selected branches.
And it's only in this section.
Straight up this hill. They're just ripped off.
That looks like a kind of a makeshift structure right there, doesn't it? That kind of looks like a makeshift structure under there, like they put that other branch over the top. I mean, some of these may be deer beds, but not all of them. And the deer don't do this to trees.
There's no root for it, and that's one of the signs if a tree's been dragged.
This tree's been moved
There's no
in here
roots
to make
around
some
here.
kind of a structure. And there is
Well, let me just show you.
no tree where it came from.
As we continue up here,
It's been torn and thrown here.
branches have been torn down. And right there, that one's been
Look at
broken
that.
Up high.
I mean, look at this little structure right here. That's a different kind of a. That's not. This is just not. I mean, these are woven in between some of these. I mean, that and that nose down there. Like a blind or something.
Yeah, been broken down.
Okay, Now, here's another tree. Look at this. This has been pushed down. Look at that, look at that, look at that structure down there. Look at that, where it's underneath, you could sit under there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
Wow, that's crazy.
Look. Right here, we got more. Those trees have been twisted.
These are live trees where these branches have been just torn down.
Been just twisted and popped and torn off of there. Look at how high up too.
And these are the kind of trees, these aren't quaking aspen. Quaking aspen are typical snow load trees that tip over. These kind of trees aren't. Juniper.
Right up to the top, there's more up there that have been broken off.
Another tree that's been thrown. I don't know what's going on in this.
Over there, look.
Yeah, there's another one. On this specific thing. This looks like the perfect, oh my. Look. You tell me what that is. That's not a leg and a butt or side. That's not a deer.
No.
Or an elk. Or any kind of smaller animal. That's weird. We've hunted out here a lot, never seen that kind of stuff. That looks, yeah, this is just untouched type area. Perfect for blinds, and look how these have been drugged back here to make a blind. I don't know if this one for sure has, but it's weird that those are down there and the rest of it shoved up.
Well, no wonder they're right here. You can see everything coming. I mean, that's just crazy the way those branches are down on that one strut.
I mean, and I guarantee if we were to go up on there, which we're not today, there's some things.
Well, here's the thing. Did you notice which side of the tree every one of those, the branches were pulled off?
What was it?
The lower side of the tree.
The lee side?
The lower side.
Look at that.
On the lower side,
I mean, just on they're all on the lower side, on the south side. On the side the wind blows in from. That's interesting, isn't it? This is just crazy with the pine nuts and everything else. If I was a hominid and I needed a lot of calories per day, you could just lay down into one of those trees and get all you need. Ooh, this tree's been pulled out. This is just insanity. I mean, tell me how that piece of pine is sitting right there. It's been ripped off the top of that tree, just the very top of it. See, this tree could be anything because it's dead, but this has been pushed over. Two of them. What are the chances of two in the same area being pushed over? And then here's those weird, I mean, that's elk tracks there, but the scraping is weird. And you wouldn't be able to see any footprints on here at all.
See, there's more branches branches
just
on the
rock.
South side of the tree torn off.
South side again.
Over this Sasquatch was picked off.
Something upset things right there.
And he went. What he did was he just went through this place,
Pushing them.
tearing things up.
Look, there's another one down. See, I can understand if they're dead and they tip over and they rot. That's fine. But when they fall over, they fall over. They don't get picked up and pushed or thrown into a different tree. Like, you tell me how that tree is setting on that live tree. Okay, that just didn't happen. And nobody's been up here. Nobody. I don't know, it may have been there. It doesn't look like it was, though. Like these. You know, and those being ripped down. This is just weird, like all this little area is just ripped up.
Really crazy.
Look at that branch shoved up into that tree. Like it's been pulled down and just left hanging. See the end of it?
Oh yeah.
It's weird, isn't it? Yeah, we came up in this area, not up here, but down below hunting, and there's none of this kind of stuff. It's almost like once you get closer to the top, and then once you're on the top, everything's just ripped up and moved, and look at that. Look how those are just laid down. Those tracks right there look like they could be something, but you can't really see tracks very well. You know, all these branches and stuff that are shoved up in the trees, and then as we start to work our way back down. Oh yeah, look at that.
Snapped off. Those are live branches.
All this is like, this would be good shelter for anybody. All these trees, the way they are. Probably can't see it in this video, but something is laid right there, big. Laid there and ate pine nuts. This has been torn up out of the ground. It's dead, so, but it's recent. It's really weird. And this one has been pushed over.
Giant spider come running out on me.
Yeah. Alright. Don't know what that is, but ooh. That's probably some kind of a mushroom. Actually, it's got a lot of texture. It's a mushroom. Dude.
Snow's not going to do that.
No, not especially under these other trees.
That is just crazy that sucker has been
Just bent
I mean,
and broke to bent. Bend
Yeah.
it down and bent.
I can't even bend that. It's broken now.
And it's really thick in here too.
Very thick
Something wanted you in here. They could get you. This one's been thrown down. This tree right here has been thrown down in the middle, out of nowhere. And these trees have just been hammered.
Is that a real tree that's been twisted? I'd break it and twist it down that way. Kind of bent back up.
I mean, that tree's just bent clear over. But you can see in some of these spots where things have laid down or sat down to eat pine nuts. I mean, look at those spots right there. That is where, and deer will move the dirt out of the way and try to find a place to lay, but that looks like somebody or something has sat down. I mean, there's two big, probably can't even see it in this camera. Piece of a tree that's not, didn't come from there. I don't know where it came from. It's almost like
Any more broken branches?
some weird.
It's not slow doing that.
I mean, so many of these trees could be little structures or blinds. They wouldn't even need anything else.
Break it over to sit in there under the shade on a hot day.
Mm-hmm. Or this
No,
big
look
old
at
pile
this,
of
a
whatever
pile of
that
broken
is.
branches, it's just piled up there.
That was probably a bed at some point, braced up somewhere else.
That hasn't been cut. That's been just
It's been thrown, and it's been not been thrown from right here.
all of them are piled up in a row. Look at that. And we're out in the middle of nowhere.
There's been no
Nobody's
people
been
out
up
here chainsawing, looking for wood, none of that. Look, you can see where it's been ripped.
Yeah, every one of those have been ripped off.
Look at the size of those pine nuts. Man.
Some big old pine nuts.
See that? Look at that. Man, that's what I'd do. And then you got these. The problem is you really can't tell. The only tracks you might be able to see are horse and elk and maybe some deer, but they could walk along these rocks and you'd never even know they were in here. Except for all this tree carnage.
It's interesting to me. This is interesting because you can look and tell how those were snapped off. Those were pulled right off the tree.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the end of that.
'Cause that tree's still alive.
And that tree's still alive, and it was. I mean, those branches were just torn right off.
Man, there's another one that's been snapped at halfway up. And all the time we've been out hunting out in this area and stuff, I've never seen any of this. We haven't actually hunted on this side though. I mean, this is just crazy. Look at these trees. Wow. And that's live tree too. I mean, it's one thing if the tree died, you know, you could probably expect a branch or two to come off of it, but I just found the asterisk that people have been saying they see. What is that? Oh, you tell me. See those pine nuts? Yeah, that's natural. Look at this asterisk.
So what would drop all those in a pile with this stick right there, underneath that stick? Like it was carrying the stick and the nuts, and it just took off.
Yeah, and a squirrel doesn't leave the nuts out in the open ever. If you're thinking that was a squirrel, it wasn't. But look at this asterisk. You know how some people say in their markings and the way that the tree leans and everything, there's an asterisk right there. That's not, we didn't make it. Those were laid that way. All this is just crazy up here.
It's still got green leaves on it.
I know.
Green pine, and it's been.
And that other one's
laid
been leaned
across.
back
See,
across.
one of their trademarks is an asterisk.
Look at that.
That's crazy. I mean, that's got.
Man, if you weren't a believer and you came in here today, I still think we may have even startled that one.
I think he just was carrying that branch, and he had a handful of pine nuts, and they set them both down and took off and on and hurried up. They didn't make anyone know.
Because those pine nuts hadn't had any sun bleach on them at all.
They've been sitting there out in the middle of that trail. If they've been sitting there very long, they've been bleached out.
Another live tree pushed over. This isn't a dead one. This is a live tree that was pushed over. This would be an excellent place for an ambush. For elk and deer that came through here, they could, I mean, look at this.
The only ones that have been up here since the snow
Look
came
at that right there.
Yeah.
I mean, if that isn't a good place for an ambush, I don't know where a good place would be. I mean, it could step back in there, you'd never see it. From either side. Get my heart pounding. There's another tree that's been pushed down. 2 of them. What are the chances of that? Not being coincidental. Okay, there's another branch that's out in the middle of nowhere that you can tell has been recently ripped off of some tree. You can still see that the wood hasn't even bleached, meaning this was done recently. And some of these trees have the markings of elk scratching their horns on them, but that's not what we're talking about here. Elk rubs are pretty common. They don't take trees and heave them into different locations to build blinds and to make an area super dense. Never been up in here before. I'm not sure I want to come back in here.
That's just crazy. This, right by this big tree that's been torn off here. At the bottom, there's a whole pile of pine nuts. Right there. And this is just a branch that's been carried and dropped right on top of it. What would do that? It's crazy. You just found an asterisk. Oh wow.
We didn't take it. Those are lazy.
Yeah.
All this is just crazy.
That one's still got green leaves on it.
I know.
Green pine, and it's been
And that other one's
laid
been
across.
laid back
See, one of
across.
their trademarks is an asterisk. That's crazy. I mean, that's got live.
That's got a live tree in the middle of it. That right there, my friend, is something. That's
Broken off. See right there in the middle.
well, let's just say we give the snow credit for some of these, okay? But you can't, if you look in a circle, you look out through these trees, right? In any other given area, there's no snow load. There's no snow that's dropped any of these trees. And these aren't typically the kind of trees that crumble under snow load. Aspen are usually those kind of trees, and some
Not a cedar.
ponderosas, not juniper or cedar or pine, pinyon.
10 foot up, growing straight up and down, and they're just come through here and just breaking them off.
There's another tree
If
that's
you grab
been
a hold of one of these
thrown.
branches and try to pull it off, there's no way you'd be near strong enough.
No,
And those are 4 inches around.
no, you couldn't pull that over, let alone push these trees over. I mean, this is, look at that, it's still alive. That break right there is still alive.
That's just fresh.
Wow. This tree's been bent. It's still alive.
Look at that.
Okay, now explain that to me. That tree's upside down in this tree, and there's no break on that tree.
This tree has been broken off, and it's just standing there upside down. It doesn't come off.
And it didn't come off that tree, and it didn't come off this tree.
Didn't come off this tree anywhere.
That's been heaved from somewhere.
Yeah, it's been dragged down and set there for purpose.
And there's another one
That one's been.
right here.
Those are not torn off of this tree. We can't find any
No.
place that they've been broken off of this tree.
And this would be a perfect place because they could conceal every footprint they have in this stuff because it's rock and shale. Looks like a footprint down there, but it's probably just the elk. And then we come upon this. This whole area's just been ransacked.
All those branches have been pulled down to make a structure.
To make a place to be safe from the elements in there.
Down and pulled down.
You know, 2 years ago, you could have told me there was a Sasquatch running around in here, and I would have thought you were crazy. Not so much. There's just too many things that most people wouldn't even notice. This looks like a tree that's been stripped for tree knocking, I guess. I mean, it possibly
also
could
like
be
to
an
get
elk, but
They also like to get the sap off of some of these trees.
yeah.
They'll
But
pull
elk
the-
usually like smaller trees that they can just pummel and strip. And most of the time they're cedars or juniper. That's interesting.
But look right on the back side of that, there's all these branches have been torn down. Just more craziness.
This is another location. One of these days, We're gonna come up here in the evening at night, and we'll bring you guys up here at night. And Steve's gonna show me how to do it at night. Because I'm not sure I could even stay another hour up here right now. I'm freaking out, but there's another pushed over tree. I mean, that one's dead, but it's still got a huge root ball.
Well, they do like to push over trees.
This tree right here
That's alive.
is alive, and that is not a chainsaw to cut that down.
Here's another prime example right here. There's a live tree. It was alive, healthy.
See, and here's the example. If there were one of the two trees that were, let's say that tree, which is all dead, would have fallen way sooner than this tree if it was natural.
Yeah.
So
That's just been pushed over and snapped. Crazy.
we'll come in and they'll dig themselves a bed, but they don't do that. That tree's been knocked down, but yet that dead one over there is just fine.
Yeah.
See that one? It's been ripped off as well. This is an interesting mountain, and now as we get off the top and we're headed down, they stop.